Hey guys, it's True Man of Steel here again, and I just want to make a video going over my top 5 favorite moments in Man of Steel. Starting off from number 5 for me is the fortress scene, where Clark finally has a chance to talk to his father, the holographic form of Jor-El. And for me, that was such a great scene on so many different levels because not only was the exposition just for the movie-going audience themselves, but for Clark as well, because not for years Clark has been and like kept in the dark about like where he came from. Like he doesn't really know who he is. Like he's always had just like all he knows is that he's not from Earth. That's all he's ever known. And here's the consciousness of his deceased father telling him basically the whole history between Krypton and how they spread amongst the stars for thousands of years, and then how they just how everything just so greatly shown through the liquid geo, like all like the liquid forming stuff that creates like the structures for the storytelling. That was a great aspect of it too, because not only do you like listen to Jor-El telling the story, but you get to see it visually, like how it flows from like part to part, which I think was a little like some people have been like, it's too much exposition. It's like to me, like that was fine. Like it looked really cool, and it was just kind of cool seeing how everything kind of flowed and connected from like showing the what's it called Genesis chamber and explaining how that like how artificial population control was created and everything, how Clark, that whole scene, and from where Jor-El begins explaining where Clark came from up until the part where the suit is revealed. That's all just such great exposition. And of course I think that the movie needed it because this introducing a new Superman, a new history of this Superman and his world, that the audience needed to know a little bit of background, like what the world of Krypton was and like why Jor-El felt he had to send his son off this dying world to a new world to settle upon it. And you know what? Like it was great exposition. It was a great scene overall. All right, number 4 favorite scene. The interrogation scene where Clark surrenders himself to the U.S. military and he's being questioned by Lois and the general and the other military personnel. And like many of you guys, that was one of my favorite scenes. Not only because of like just like the chemistry between Henry Cavill and Amy Adams was really great, but because it just goes to show that Clark is at a very vulnerable point in his life, because never before has he had to really reveal himself to the world in that sort of way before, and so he doesn't really know what to do. That's why he went to like a random priest, like someone who thought would just help him, like give him a little more guidance on something that he's unaware of. And so when he finally surrenders himself, it's just like he's like, you know what, like who do I trust more, my own people who I don't even know, or the people of Earth who have like shared my human experience with? And of course, he chooses Earth, and he chooses to trust we as a human race first. And to me, that's such a great thing because throughout the whole movie, you see Clark really questions, like like where do I come from? Just like, do I choose Earth, or do I choose this like the people, like my people, like what's left of my people? Like, do I choose them or do I choose the human race? And that's kind of like an underlying theme of the movie for me, at least from what I saw, what I got from it. And for me, like the whole scene between Clark and Lois and how that goes about, and explaining how like the S obviously is a symbol for hope on his planet. And of course, like Lois kind of gives him that look, like yeah, here it's an S. Because of course, if you look at the Superman symbol, it's obvious. It's okay because it's Superman. It's an S. And in the movie, you have to kind of make the S make sense, and the whole like Kryptonian language and how they explain that. It's cool, but at the same time, it's a little ridiculous. Cause it's like come on, it's an S. And then how Clark, the entire time, well, not the entire time, for most of that scene, he was handcuffed, and obviously he could have ripped out of those at any time he wanted, but he chose not to. And that was just such a great part of the performance of Henry Cavill, because he's just sitting there, like he just calmly, collectedly, just answering the questions, talking to the general, talking to Emil Hamilton, just nice and calmly, and then he just stands up, rips him off. No hostility, no nothing. Very calmly walk towards the glass, and he's talking to them between with the glass between them. But he's talking to them almost face to face, like like I have nothing to hide. Just do what you have to do. Like I trust you guys. If you guys can just put a little faith in me, and that's not exactly what he was saying, but that's kind of what he was saying with that just with that scene. He's like walking up there. He's like, like just do what you have to for the safety of the world, and that was such a great scene for me. All right, third favorite scene in the movie, the flight scene. Connecting to the fortress scene earlier, when the first show the Superman suit in the movie, it was cool. Like the thing opens up and like there it is, just there for the audience to see, and just like it's the first time you're seeing it, and of course they have to make it all extravagant. They're like showing it like spinning on the thing, and it was a cool little reveal. But then just when Clark emerges from the fortress and just like steps out in the Arctic and just like walking on the snow, looks up and then tries taking off, and like he does like the little thing that he was originally famous for, in the comics and in the little movie serials from when he was first created. Like he was leaping huge leaps before he could fly, which I think was a cool little Easter egg for us, like really hardcore fans, and that like there's Superman, he leaps tall buildings in a single bound, like, and in fact, like Superman didn't actually fly when he first was created; he could only leap. That's where the leap tall buildings thing came from. And I thought that was a little cool thing. Right before he can really fly, he was just leaping. And when the Clark just like crashes, he's like trying to fly up, and then he crashes into the ground in the mountain. And he gets up, and he's starting to get up, and he's like, Jarl's like, "You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards." And like those words are resonating in his head. It's like they'll race behind you, they will stumble, they'll fall, and in time they will join you in the sun cow. And then he looks up, absorbs the sunlight, and then he just takes off. And then the music, just Hans Zimmer in this movie had such a great score, and I was a little worried it was gonna be a little too. Oh, sorry, I was hoping it was gonna be like really dark, like the Dark Knight soundtrack. As much as I love those movies, and as great as the soundtrack was, I was a little worried it was gonna be a little too dark. But for me, like Hans Zimmer did such a great job with this movie. It really felt like Superman was this godlike man, just like every little part of that scene, and with Clark just flying and taking off, going faster and faster, and then taking off and just going across the oceans. And if you notice, like as he's flying, he gets all serious, and then like towards the end of it, he just has the biggest smile on his face. Like he's almost geeking out that he's flying. Like who wouldn't? Like it's flying. Like everyone wants to fly at some point. There's the music. Like that whole scene was like I had a little nerdgasm myself, because me being the big Superman fan that I am, I was looking forward to how they're gonna take flight in this movie, and it looked so cool. And even again, like Henry Cavill, like his little geeking out moment, like I don't know if that was in character or not, but this huge smile he had in his face towards the end, and he's like flying through like canyons and all that, and just like shoots up into space and just like bam, like that was so cool. All right, and then down my number two for me, my second favorite moment in Man of Steel would have to be the scene where Jonathan talks to Clark after the bullies had pulled him out of the car. For me, that scene carried a lot of emotional weight to the movie, because this is when Clark was questioning, like like what do I do? Like, do I turn myself in to my people, or do I turn myself in to the people of Earth? Like, I don't know who to trust. And it's this flashback moment where like the bullies are threatening Clark, tell him to get up, tell him in a fight, and he's just staying back. And then like his dad there, and luckily his dad was there. He just walks up to him, he's like, you all right? He's like, did they hurt you? And he's like, and Clark's like, they can't. And he's like, that's not what I meant. He's like, are you okay? You all right? That scene carried so much emotional weight for me, because it's showing Clark that like, like, yes, his dad, like deep down, like not deep down, his dad wanted him to fight those kids, and honestly, I wanted them to. Those kids were assholes. Excuse my language. Like seriously, like they're all just like standing there, like the one guy's trying to like beat him up, and everyone else is like seriously like, okay, no one's gonna say, oh, maybe you shouldn't be picking on the kid who's doing nothing to you. Okay, that kind of bugged me, but yeah, like we all kind of wanted Clark to beat up those kids, but of course he had to hold himself back, because if he wanted to, well, you could kill him. And of course, Jonathan was like, even part of me wanted you to, but then what? Would you have felt any better? Like, That's when that moment when he just like you have to decide what kind of man you want to grow up to be, Clark, because whoever that man is, good character or bad, he's going to change the world. That gave Clark that reassurance that, you know what, like, I may not always know what to do, but you're my father, and I'm going to trust you with helping me making these decisions. And in that moment, that really helped Clark just kind of decide, like, what should I do in that moment? Should I trust my instincts? Should I, like, who should I trust? Who should I, like, that's the big thing in the movie is, like, who should he trust? And should the people of Earth trust him? And that was just, that scene was, like, overall one of my favorite scenes in any superhero movie. All right, my favorite moment in Man of Steel. The very last scene in the movie, Welcome to the Planet. For me, like, watching the movie, I'm like, okay, this is a great Superman movie, but, like, up until then, I had seen no, bit of the Clark Kent, with the glasses. Like, none of us had seen any of that, and we're just like, okay, like, maybe they'll go a different route, maybe they'll get rid of the glasses, I don't know. So, like, post the Battle of Metropolis and all that, and you see, like, Clark talking to his mom. He's like, she's like, what are you going to do when you're not saving the world? And he's like, I have to find a job where I can keep my ear to the ground. And they suddenly explain, like, why he goes to the planet. It's like, where people won't look twice when I want to go somewhere dangerous and start asking questions. Because in the past, like, Superman just kind of, like, ended up at the Daily Planet. Like, they didn't really explain, like, how or why. Not in every incarnation. And some they do, and some they don't. Here, they gave, like, enough explanation of why. And as soon as, like, you see Clark, like, riding his bike down Metropolis, which, like, at least, like, part of it would look, like, fixed. And Clark riding his bike and gets into the planet and, like, puts on the glasses as he gets in the elevator so he can't even see. And he gets upstairs and, like, Perry White introduces him to Lois and Steve. And that, like, great moment where you see Clark with his glasses for the first time, you're just like, yes, this is it. This is Superman. This is Clark Kent. It says how it should be finally. And it was a little nerding out moment. But Superman in this movie, he was more Superman than Clark Kent. Now that's what I was like up until that scene. I was like, come on, I want to see a little Clark Kent. And the moment finally came, and that great bit of dialogue between Henry and Amy in that moment, where she's just like, "Welcome to the planet." The first time I saw the movie, I'm just like, okay, like welcome to the Daily Planet. Like, the planet's a nickname for the Daily Planet. But for me, like, I didn't realize until like my third or fourth time seeing the movie in theaters that meant, it was like a double meaning. It's like, welcome to Earth, like, we trust you. Like, for me, like, that made that moment so much better, because here's Clark, like, for his whole life he struggled with, like, like, can I fit in? Like, who can I trust? Like, are people going to accept me for who I am and what I can do? And here's this woman who's, despite everything, she trusts him with all of her heart, and assuring him, like his own dad did, like, hey, it's okay, like, we trust you, like, we're glad you're here. And that gave Clark that bit of assurance, and they both smile at each other. End of the movie. That was overall my favorite moment in the movie. Just that look of reassurance that Lois gives to Clark, that, like, welcome, like, we're glad to have you here. Like, that's all she had to say, like, just with her eyes and her smile. That's all she had to say. All right, guys, well, that'll be it for me and my top 5 favorite moments in Man of Steel. Going over them again: the fortress scene, the interrogation scene, the flight scene, one of the Jonathan Kent speech scenes with the bullies, and then the welcome to the planet scene. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and see you around.